evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Steven Machado.
And I am Thiruni Karunarotna. Here are tonight's top stories. Sri Lanka set to receive sixth tranche of $350 million from IMF within next 2 weeks. Australia provides additional $2.5 million in aid to Sri Lanka. Total Australian aid reaches $3.5 million. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, Japan and the UAE support relief efforts in Sri Lanka. Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund receives over 300 million rupees from 19,000 deposits. Joint rescue operations by the Sri Lankan and Indian Air Forces continue. Newsfirst joins rescue efforts. President emphasizes the need to provide a long-term solution for people living in high-risk areas. Efforts begin to restore normalcy to people's lives in many areas. Sirasa Shakti Sahanayatra continues for the 7th consecutive day today, delivering aid by water and land.
In your top story this evening, President Kumar Dissanayake has instructed for the identification of houses fully or partially damaged by the adverse weather to be carried out under a proper and standardized methodology. He further directed officials to develop a specialized system to efficiently gather accurate data needed for providing compensation. These instructions were issued during a discussion held at the Presidential Secretariat with officials of the Housing Development Authority and the Ministry of Finance.
The meeting was convened to review the compensation process for houses damaged by Cyclone Ditwa. President Kumar Dissanayake stressed the importance of providing a long-term solution for communities living in vulnerable areas so they are not affected by such disasters again. He instructed officials to ensure that accurate data is identified and compiled for this purpose. According to the Housing Development Authority, surveys conducted so far have confirmed that 1,289 houses have been fully destroyed, while 44,574 houses have been partially damaged due to landslides.
Sri Lanka is set to receive a critical lifeline of $350 million from the International Monetary Fund within 2 weeks, marking the release of the sixth tranche of the extended fund facility. The announcement came as international development partners reaffirmed strong support for the nation's relief and recovery efforts following the devastating impact of Cyclone Ditwa. The pledge was made during a high-level donor forum convened by the Ministry of Finance, bringing together diplomatic missions, multilateral lenders and bilateral partners to coordinate emergency assistance and long-term rehabilitation. The President's Media Division said that international development partners have extended strong support in providing relief to the affected communities and in rebuilding Sri Lanka. The meeting was co-chaired by the Governor of the Central Bank and the Secretary to the Treasury, with participation from senior government officials. Presenting an overview of the cyclone's extensive damage across housing, infrastructure, agriculture and essential services, the Treasury Secretary stressed the urgent need to shift from emergency response to a structured recovery framework. He called for rapid humanitarian aid, food supplies, grants, concessional financing and short to medium-term assistance to stabilize affected communities. The central bank governor highlighted the importance of external financial support, citing limited domestic borrowing capacity amid contracting economic sectors. Authorities also urged partners to promote international engagement and revive tourism to accelerate economic recovery. Development partners responded with strong commitments. Several countries have already deployed disaster relief teams and pledged immediate assistance, including emergency healthcare, clean drinking water, hygiene kits and medical supplies to prevent disease outbreaks. Partners also agreed to repurpose existing loan facilities for medium-term rehabilitation of roads, bridges, irrigation systems and transport networks, while exploring new loan and grant packages for long-term development. The World Bank has initiated a rapid post-disaster assessment and discussions are underway for a comprehensive damage and needs analysis to mobilize funding for housing, infrastructure and livelihoods.
Many countries are joining forces to provide relief to those affected by Cyclone Ditwa in Sri Lanka. Now, throughout the day, several aircraft carrying international aid arrived in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Asian Development Bank has announced that it will provide $3 million in assistance, responding to Sri Lanka's request for disaster relief. The Australian government has also pledged an additional $2.5 million, bringing its total support for Cyclone Ditwa relief efforts to $3.5 million. According to the relevant statement, this assistance will be delivered through Australian NGOs and the United Nations as required.
In the past few days, due to Sri Lanka's strong relations with international partners, the country has received significant assistance from multiple parties to support people affected by Cyclone Ditwa. As another step in this direction, the Asian Development Bank has announced that it will provide $3 million in aid to Sri Lanka, following a government request to assist disaster victims. The fund will be provided through the ADB's Asia Pacific Disaster Response Fund. Meanwhile, the Asian Development Bank has also approved a $100 million loan to further strengthen the country's power sector. This initiative aims to enhance the efficiency of power generation, transmission and distribution across Sri Lanka. In addition, a consignment of emergency relief materials donated by the government of Japan, reflecting its continued support for the people of Sri Lanka, was officially handed over to the Disaster Management Center by the Japan International Cooperation Agency today. The consignment, which arrived yesterday, includes 200 tents, 1,200 blankets, 1,200 sleeping mats, 20 plastic sheets, 200 portable water containers and 10 water purifiers. Meanwhile, a 27-member Japanese disaster relief medical team arrived in the country last night, demonstrating continued support for those affected. This team, consisting of doctors, specialists, relief officers and rescue experts, will coordinate with national institutions to provide essential medical support at the ground level, strengthen relief operations and assist areas where health services have been severely disrupted by the disaster. The Japanese delegation, led by Kichiro Iwase, joins a 4-member medical team that had previously arrived in Sri Lanka for disaster relief activities. In total, 31 Japanese personnel are now engaged in humanitarian relief operations across the country.
Atigaru Janadipati Anukumara Disanaki Mahatage Japan Sanchara Haraha Derata Ataratiena Mitra Samaratawa Shaktimatu Unakiala Mama Sirasa Karanwa.
India also extended support with a C-17 aircraft carrying humanitarian aid arriving in Sri Lanka last evening. The consignment was officially handed over by the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha. It includes 50 tons of iron Bailey bridges for reconstructing roads in affected areas, 500 water purification machines, each capable of purifying 20 litres of water to ensure safe drinking water, and a stock of essential medicines. Similarly, a Pakistani C-130 aircraft carrying emergency relief materials and a search and rescue team arrived in Sri Lanka yesterday. The Pakistani High Commissioner in Colombo officially handed over the relief aid to Sri Lanka. On instructions of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, 47 members of the Pakistan Army Search and Rescue Unit, along with 6.5 metric tons of equipment, were sent. The relief consignment includes tents, blankets, life jackets, inflatable boats, water pumps, lamps, mats, mosquito nets, infant formula, ready-to-eat foods and essential medicines. Pakistani and Indian military ships and helicopters are already engaged in ongoing relief operations in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, Bangladesh has contributed through an Air Force plane carrying relief supplies, including 1,000 mosquito nets, 500 food packets, 10 tents and 125 kits of essential medicines. The kits also include flashlights, shoes, coats, gloves and helmets to support disaster-affected communities. Furthermore, 4 planes from the United Arab Emirates have delivered food, relief bags and rescue vehicles to Sri Lanka, reinforcing ongoing support for affected populations.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has sent a message of condolence to Sri Lankan President Anukumara Dissanayake following the severe flooding and devastation that occurred in Sri Lanka. It is reported that in the message sent yesterday, the Chinese President Xi Jinping said that he was shocked upon learning of the major loss of life and economic damage caused by the severe rainfall and other adverse weather conditions that affected Sri Lanka. Representing the Chinese government and the Chinese people, the Chinese President also expressed deep sorrow for those who died in the disaster and conveyed his sincere sympathy to their families and the affected people. It is noteworthy that he also stated that China and Sri Lanka are strategic cooperative partners bound by a traditional friendship, offering sincere mutual support, and that China is willing to provide assistance to Sri Lanka to overcome the disaster. The Chinese president's message further stated his belief that under the strong leadership of the Sri Lankan government, its people will be able to quickly overcome the calamity and rebuild their homes.
Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Dr. Harshana Suryaperuma, said the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund has surpassed 300 million rupees from 19,000 deposits as of this morning. Methods through which financial assistance can be provided to Sri Lanka from abroad were also outlined.
කදුදේ වාර්තාවට අනුව ලැබිලා තියෙනවා රුපියල් මිලියන 300 ඉක්මවා ආධාර ඒ ගිණුමට මේ වෙනකොට ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. Due to the recent disaster, many lives have been impacted. Some have lost their lives, their loved ones, and in some of the cases the trauma, both physical and mental, has taken a toll on the citizens of Sri Lanka. We have got several requests from the beginning for our fellow citizens who are residing overseas, living overseas, working overseas, to contribute and support their fellow citizens, their relatives, their neighbors, brothers and sisters who are here, for them to get involved and support and contribute to the rebuilding and relief exercises. In that regard, some wanted to contribute financially and some wanted to contribute by sending goods to Sri Lanka. For both these mechanisms, government has swiftly made arrangements with the engagement of Ministry of Finance and working with other line ministries and agencies. Several facilities and mechanisms have already been established. In order to remit money, there is single account through the Bank of Ceylon where you can deposit money in any currency into the Bank of Ceylon account, where those funds will be collected and channeled for rebuilding activities. In the event someone wants to contribute through, instead of sending money to the Bank of Ceylon account, they have the option of handing over those money to the relevant embassy, Sri Lankan embassy of the country in which that you are residing, our citizens are living.
Dr. Harshana also stressed that all material and aid donated to the country is exempt from taxes.
In the event someone wants to contribute by sending goods to Sri Lanka, a simplified process has been established. It is the 3 steps of simplification. First part is simplified documentation. Second part is simplified process in terms of clearance. And the third step is by removing all applicable taxes and charges when at the time of clearance. In order to benefit from this arrangement, it is necessary that the consignee or the recipient party has to be identified as Disaster Management Center. If the goods are sent, identified where the Disaster Management Center is the recipient, then all such goods will be eligible for this simplified process. 3-step process, as I mentioned earlier. One is simplification in terms of documentation, simplified clearance process, and removal of all taxes and charges applicable. Through this process, it is envisaged a special task force has been established through various government departments and line ministries who are involving in these processes. They are available to facilitate swift and quick clearance of those items and hand over such items to whether it is medical supplies or supplies relating to rebuilding efforts. It could be building material, it could be clothing or any other relevant material. Details of these requested items are available and it is notified through the Foreign Ministry's website what are the items Sri Lanka is asking for. So anyone is able to contribute by sending goods through this simplified process.
Hutch has contributed 60 million rupees to the Rebuilding Sri Lanka, the fund set up by the government to provide relief to those affected by the disaster. The cheque was handed over this morning at the Presidential Secretariat to Presidential Secretary Dr. Nandika Sanath Kumar Naika. In addition, Hutch has been actively supporting disaster-affected communities by providing free calls, data and SMS services, deploying mobile charging booths and mobilizing aircraft engineers to repair damaged communication towers in the aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa. Sri Lanka Cricket has announced a donation of 300 million rupees to the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund. Sri Lanka Cricket stated that this decision reflects its deep sense of responsibility as an iconic national sporting body representing a game cherished by millions of Sri Lankans. According to the announcement, the donation will support the government in providing emergency relief to families affected by Cyclone Ditwa and in restoring essential public services to help rebuild their lives.
Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group, Siobhan Daniel, joined Chief News anchor Ben Brown on BBC Live this evening.
Group Director of Capital Maharaja Group, Siobhan Daniel, detailed the situation in Sri Lanka following the devastation from Cyclone Ditwa when he joined Chief News anchor Ben Brown on BBC Live this evening.
For the longer term, I think the world really truly needs to stand up and help Sri Lanka, not out of desperation, but out of hope, because as I said, all the Sri Lankan people would need is just some support in order to stand up once again. And I have to say, Ben, that just from the very first day that this devastation hit Sri Lanka, the spirit of volunteerism has just been incredible. There are so many organizations that have just come out and supported the relief efforts, trying to get food out into those most desperately needed areas. And it's just a fantastic, inspiring story. In fact, the movement that I'm involved in as well, the Sahanyatra, has been just throngs of Sri Lankans have volunteered themselves, volunteered contributions, donations, food, dry rations. And mind you, these are people who already don't have much, or they've probably been impacted by the storm themselves. And yet they've come forward because they just simply refuse to see their fellow Sri Lankans suffer alone. And that is a very inspiring story. So together with a strong and steady response from the government, a very inspiring, motivated populace who are very, very determined to take Sri Lanka out of its current state, I think with a little bit of help from the world, we can get back on our feet.
Newsfirst, main sponsor.
Valuable FD, the symbol of stability. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
The Department of Meteorology has issued a warning of thunder showers with strong lightning tonight, particularly in the Sabaragamu and southern provinces, as well as in parts of the Kalutara district. The public is advised to take necessary precautions to avoid lightning-related dangers. Moderate to heavy rainfall exceeding 50 millimeters is expected in the western and Sabaragamu provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Periods of rain are also likely in the northern, north-central, eastern and over provinces, as well as in the Mathura district. Meanwhile, wind speeds in the sea areas off the coast from Chilor to Mullaitivu, while Mana and Kankasantare may reach up to 40 kilometers an hour.
The Disaster Management Centre confirmed that the death toll from the recent adverse weather conditions that prevailed in Sri Lanka has risen to 481, while another 345 people are reportedly missing. A total of 1,814,534 people from 509,680 families have been affected. Currently, 171,492 people are taking shelter in 1,236 centers across the country.
The most critical issue is that many parts of the entire landmass are currently unstable, and there are still many instances where people are remaining in those locations. The truth is, people are still staying in places where the ground is cracked and has fissures, where mud springs and muddy water are emerging, and where landslide characteristics are clearly visible. This is an extremely dangerous situation. Despite our frequent warnings and public awareness campaigns, there is still a tendency for people not to evacuate. Therefore, we are making a special, earnest request. Do not remain in such high-risk locations any longer. The soil that is already saturated, meaning that even a very small amount of rainfall could trigger landslides. If you observe any instability or signs of a landslide where you are, or if you receive a warning about such a risk, immediately evacuate to a safe location. Once you have evacuated, please remain in those safe locations and do not return until you receive the necessary recommendations and instructions through the relevant coordination channels. This is a time when everyone must responsibly fulfill their part. The public must pay special attention to protecting their lives, prioritizing themselves over their property.
The Indian Air Force and the Sri Lanka Air Force are working side by side in rescue and relief operations. Today, a Newsfirst team went on the ground to witness these collaborative efforts firsthand.
The Indian Air Force's Mi-17 helicopter departed from Rotmalana Airport today, bound for Nuwara, carrying relief supplies along with 2 Indian pilots and a joint aircrew team representing both countries. While en route, a Newsfirst team captured footage of widespread landslides and disaster-affected areas across the Central Hills, though specific locations could not be identified. The helicopter made its first landing at the Poromadulla Public Stadium in Mathuratta, Nuwara.
I'm currently in the Poromadulla area of Mathuratta in the Central Highlands, and as you can see behind me is how the public or the affected communities who have come here to the public grounds of Poromadulla unloading goods off of the Mi-17 helicopter belonging to the Indian Air Force. We arrived here a few minutes ago, and this is how the people of Mathuratta area or the Poromadulla area of Mathuratta are loading their goods, loading these relief supplies and the donations that they've received into a truck, and they will be distributing these supplies to the affected communities from the aftermath of Cyclone Dippa. And you can see how the public have gathered here to see what is happening here as well. We have the support of both the Indian Air Force as well as the Sri Lankan Air Force. We arrived here from Mi-17 helicopter belonging to the... There are 2 pilots on board with other air crew as well as Sri Lankan Air Force crew as well. So we are currently here in Mathuratta. As we all know, Mathuratta was one of those areas that was severely affected by landslides after Cyclone Dippa hit the country. So we are currently here in the public grounds of Poromadulla area, and these supplies, these goods will be donated to the affected communities, and also the food by Sirasa Shakti Sahana Yatra are also being distributed.
After delivering 1,700 kilograms of relief items, the Joint Air Force team was assigned an additional task, the safe transportation of GCE advanced level examination question papers, which had been delayed due to the disaster. A team, including police officers, travelled from Nuwara to Kothmale to load the question papers onto the helicopter. During this operation, the team received information about nearly 20 people trapped in disaster-affected areas in Kothmale. They were then quickly evacuated and rescued by the Mi-17 helicopter.
The Indian Air Force and the Sri Lanka Air Force together conducted a joint rescue operation, an immediate emergency rescue operation from Kothmale. As you can see, behind me are more than 20 individuals who were rescued from Kothmale area, and they are being brought back to Katunayaka. Now these individuals, these families were affected and were stuck and trapped in Kothmale, unable to come back to their houses in Colombo, and now these people are being taken back to Colombo. They will be dropped off in the Katunayaka airport. This rescue operation, this emergency rescue operation was conducted by the Indian Air Force as well as the Sri Lanka Air Force. We are on board an Indian Air Force's Mi-17 helicopter.
After completing the rescue operations, the Mi-17 helicopter departed Kothmale and headed back to the Air Force base in Katunayaka.
What kind of assistance has the Indian Defence Forces have provided Sri Lanka up to now for the evacuation, for the rescue operations and even relief efforts?
As part of Operation Sagar Bandhu, immediate response to the cyclone Ditwa, the Indian Armed Forces under the direction of Government of India has responded as a first responder. So it started with the immediate relief provided by the two ships which were present in harbour, INS Vikrant and INS Udayagiri, providing immediate relief, followed by the aircraft on board INS Vikrant launching multiple sorties and rescuing around 8 people before they sailed out of harbour. And subsequently, multiple aircraft from Indian Air Force had arrived. Mi-17s, where we are sitting on board right now, 2 of them, and C-130 and C-17 aircraft bringing tons of relief material continuously, even as early as yesterday, and it is still continuing. So, the immediate aim was to provide urgent relief and rescuing the personnel, and subsequently establishing a field hospital to provide continuous care for the affected victims in the affected area.
Relief teams, with the support of the armed forces, are continuing to reach areas affected by the disaster. Due to landslides, sand dune collapses and flooding, some locations in the Central Highlands had become inaccessible.
A landslide in Morogol area in Illagolla, Hanguranketha completely destroyed 5 houses. The landslide occurred at around 5:30 am on the 27th of November. 5 people who were inside one of the houses were buried under the debris, and only one child was rescued alive. In the following day, the house owner located the bodies of his wife and daughter, while his father remains missing.
සෑහෙන දුරක් අරන් ගියා. පාරවල් වලින්, වෙල් වලින්, පරිපැල් වලින්, නාකටවල් වලින් මොකද අරන් ඉන්නවා බේරගත්තා. අනිත් එක්කෙනා මඟට යනකොට මැරුණා. මඟට යද්දී වාහනයක් තිබ්බනම් බේරගන්න කියන්නේ යන්න වාහන නැහැනේ. පාරවල් කැඩිලානේ.
Meanwhile, electricity was disrupted in the village of Kosagama in Veerapokuna area of Bingeria for 9 days. While CEB officials were working to restore the power in the grid yesterday, one official died after being electrocuted. Even though he was rushed to the hospital for treatment, his life could not be saved. The deceased official has been identified as Anuruddha Kumara, an officer attached to the Hettipola branch of the Ceylon Electricity Board in Panduwasnuwara. A resident of Matale, the deceased official was a father of 2 daughters.
කරන්ට් එක තිබුණේ දවස් 9ක් විතරම. ඊට පස්සේ ඇවිල්ලා ඒ හදද්දි එයා වැටුනේ. ඒ වැටෙන දේ දැක්කා. ඇත්තටම හරි දුකයි. දැන් මේ ගමේ ගම්වැසියෝ ඔක්කොම එකතු වෙලා එයාගේ මල ගෙදර යන්න තමයි සූදානම් වෙන්නේ.
The final rites for one of the 5 Navy personnel who went missing after being swept away by a strong current during an operation to widen the estuary at Velai Lagoon in Muletev were performed today. The deceased Navy officer was identified as leading electrical mechanic Kolitha Madhushanka Disanayaka. He was over 35 years old at the time of his death and leaves behind 6-year-old twins.
අන්තිමටම විතියක් වෙනද තාත්තා ඔහෙටත් වහිනවද කියලා ඔය මෙයාටත් වහිනවා තාත්තා කැම්ප් එකට දැන් අඩි 2ක් විතර වතුර අල්ලලා තියෙනවා අම්මා කියලා පුතේ වතුරට වහින්න එපා එච්චර ඊට පස්සේ කෝල් ගත්තා වැඩ දෙන්නේ.
Operations are still underway to locate the 4 remaining members.
The final rites of Chief Pilot Group Captain Nirmal Simbalapitiya, who lost his life in a helicopter crash while carrying out a mission to rescue disaster-affected communities, were performed today. The body was laid to rest at his residence in Rapalana. President Andrakumar Dissanayake paid his final respects this morning. "42-year-old Chief Pilot, Group Captain Nirmal Simbalapitiya was a highly experienced aviator with over 3,000 flight hours. The final rites were held at the Mount Lavinia General Cemetery.
Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
2025 ජුනි මාස 29 වෙනිදා වැඩ ආරම්භ කළ තාබෝ එම්බකී පුස්තකාලය. දෙදහස් 25 නොවැම්බර් මාස 20 වෙනිදා දරුවන්ගේ අයිතියට පත් කළ වගයි.
ගම්මැද්ද අලුත් බලාපොරොත්තුවක්.
Water levels are receding in many areas affected by floods following Cyclone Ditwa. However, residents are still struggling to return to normalcy, clearing their homes and roads of debris and flood damage.
Newsfirst correspondents report that flood waters in several areas of Valampitiya caused by the rising water levels of the Kalani River have receded, though some areas remain slightly submerged. Residents are currently engaged in cleaning their homes in the affected areas. Flood waters in the Kaduwel area have completely receded, and today the Fire Service Department of the Colombo Municipal Council, Kaduwel Police, government agencies and private institutions were engaged in cleaning the city.
අද කඩුවෙල නගරය පිරිසුදු කිරීමට කටයුතු කළා.
Flood waters in Nangoda has also receded. By this morning, the flood waters in areas including Dompe and Kalukondeyawa had receded and residents were seen cleaning their homes. In the aftermath of the cyclone Ditwa, the Gampola-Kurunduwata road was blocked due to earth slips at several locations. As a result of this, access to those villages to provide aid was impossible for about 6 days. However, the operations to reopen the road began this morning from Valikanda with the involvement of personnel, including Sri Lanka Army officers. The Pahalakudamaka village in the Gampola Upper Divisional Secretariat Division was flooded due to the overflow of the Pahalakudamaka Canal. Nearly 300 families in the village were affected and are seeking shelter at the Gampola Base Hospital. The Central Provincial Directorate of Health Services has taken steps to further close the Wattegama Regional Hospital in Kandy due to risk of landslides. Due to the heavy rains, the Badulla-Passara road has been obstructed with fallen earth debris and many places have not yet been repaired. As of today, only one lane has been opened for traffic. A Sri Lankan Air Force helicopter and an Indian Army helicopter arrived at the Badulla Vincent Dyer Stadium today to airlift food and other supplies to the Roberia, Meegahakula and Pitamarua and the Uva Paranagama, which are still inaccessible in the Badulla district. A landslide was reported in the Allagavaragal area on the 27th. 10 houses were buried under the soil and 4 houses were completely destroyed. Although 35 people from 14 families have been evacuated to safe locations, access to the area remains blocked. With heavy rains, several landslides were reported in the Glench estate area. The Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa districts were also affected by the recent adverse weather. Cleanup operations at the historic Somavatiya sacred site, which had been submerged by the floods, began as the water receded. A special mobile medical clinic for people affected by the recent floods in Polonnaruwa was held yesterday at Pudur Al-Safa Muslim Mahavidyalaya. During the clinic, which began in the morning, between 500 to 600 residents from Pudur village received medical treatment and medicines. The section near Kalaoya Bridge along the Anuradhapura-Putla main road, which was damaged due to the overflow of the Kalaoya, has been reconstructed and reopened today.
Muttur town still remains underwater. Newsfirst correspondents reported that all access roads to this area are still blocked. Meanwhile, the Kantale-Seruvilla main road was reopened last evening, restoring travel to Batiklo, Seruvilla and Kinnia via Kantale. Public transport services have also resumed along this route. This is Sirimangala Gammana, which was submerged after the breach of the Mavilaru embankment. By last evening, floodwaters had begun to recede.
Navlapitiya Nagasthana Road, which had been blocked by a landslide, was cleared for usual vehicular traffic today. The landslide at the 6th mile post in Palantota had completely halted traffic along the Navlapitiya Nagasthana Road since the 28th of November. According to our reporter, this area on the Kegol-Candid district border has been isolated for several days, preventing around 6,000 families in nearby villages from reaching Kegol or Navlapitiya. Vehicular traffic along the Colombo-Kandy road between Ganethana and the Kaduganawa police station has been completely suspended. Kegol District Secretary Jagat M. Herath told Newsfirst that the decision was made due to the risk of rockfalls. He added that only ambulances and other emergency vehicles are permitted to use this route. Accordingly, traffic along the section between Ganethana and the Kaduganawa police station has been completely halted. Meanwhile, thousands of volunteers have come from all areas across the island to provide relief to those affected by the recent disasters. Today, our team observed relief operations across the Badulla district. Multiple groups and organizations are implementing various initiatives to assist affected communities and restore normal life. In Viharagoda Badulla, the blocked drainage system in Sumanatissagama was cleared, with volunteers from the Almira Juma Mosque in Mathura lending their support. At the Passada 10th mile post, residents and volunteers worked to clean damaged houses. Meanwhile, roadblocks in Meghakula Badulla were removed with the help of staff from the Mathura Municipal Council and young volunteers from Mathura. Volunteer groups from Balangoda contributed their labour to restore Mahiyanganaya, cleaning the magistrates' court, homes, shops and wells. A team of doctors from Mathura also conducted a medical clinic at the camp run by Newburgh Tamil Mahavidyalaya, Alla, providing much-needed healthcare services. Additionally, the only road leading to the Spring Valley Regional Hospital was repaired and reopened today, ensuring access for residents and medical staff.
Religious observances were held today in memory of those who lost their lives from the recent cyclone Ditwa in Sri Lanka. Pirit chanting is currently being held at the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy, wishing swift recovery for all those affected by the disaster. At the Polonnaruwa Galviharaya, religious observances were held in memory of those who lost their lives in the disaster. Multi-religious observances were held in Badulla today. An almsgiving was held this morning at the Badulla Mutiyangane Rajamahaviharaya in memory of those who lost their lives in the disaster. A special prayer service was also held today at the Badulla main Jummah Mosque. A special religious service was held this morning at the St. Mary's Cathedral in Badulla. A Ganadevi religious service was also held at the Badulla Pahalavidya Ganadevi Kovil.
Life at its core is nothing but people. When a sudden disaster rips through communities, when precious lives are brutally lost, when hard-won possessions are utterly crushed, and when people are driven to their knees, broken and despairing, who rushes in to hold them back to their feet? It is always the people. The Sirasa Shakti Sahanayatra isn't just a relief effort. It is the absolute raw, visceral close-up of that massive, unbreakable human spirit. This is day 7 of the relief mission. 7 days of humanity fighting back.
For 7 relentless days, the flame of hope has burned bright at the main donation centres, the MTV MBC head office in Colombo's Braybrook Place, the Department Broadcasting Centre, the KCC complex in Kandy, and the hub at the Kahaduwatha Junction in Galle. In many parts of Sri Lanka, roads are shattered, landslides have swallowed communities, and beloved family members lie buried beneath the earth. For the bewildered and devastated survivors, everything has been torn upside down. Yet, in the face of this despair, scores of people continue to come forward, carrying the lifeline of aid. The Sirasa Shakti Sahanayatra is an epic testament to this compassion.
Everyone is going through a really tough time right now, so we donated some dry rations, clothes, towels, water, whatever way we can help out. So we think that we can help out the nation and want to make this a successful project, and we want to ensure that everyone gets help.
Today, it was further strengthened by the arrival of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, who brought vital supplies for those affected by the disaster.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka is very mindful and concerned of the plight of the people, and we are trying to do whatever we can in whatever capacity to support the rebuilding efforts. One of those initiatives was to collect dry rations and essentials through our legal community to hand over to those who are displaced and who are in most difficulty, and that is what we are doing today. As a country, we will certainly come out of this. The Bar Association is very supportive with all the efforts to do so. We will also be getting involved in the necessary process to bring in amendments to the law, necessary regulations to address the present issues. There are courts which are not functioning, there are records which are lost, there are appeal periods which have now passed. So we need to address all of that, similar to what happened during the tsunami and several other crises in the country.
The moment the goods arrive, they are loaded onto convoys and dispatched immediately to those in need. This morning's convoys left to the aid of those stranded in Chilau, Putlam, Hanguranketha and Ududumbara, Kandy. For the 7th consecutive day, the Department Broadcasting Centre was flooded with donors. Today's focus was on reaching those left helpless and stranded in Mahayangana and Kalababa. Aid collected at the Kandy City Centre was immediately dispatched to the desperate residents of Ankumbura, Alavatta, Dehivatta and Kartagastanna. The convoys also made its way to the Kandaloe estate near Bulatkohopitia. Teams are splitting up, making their way to the furthest reaches. In the Putlam district, the Sirasa Shakti Sahanayatra convoys reached Arachikattua, delivering essential dry rations and supplies to 750 families. In the Badula district, aid finally reached the victims in Uvaparanagama, Maspanna, Alagolla and Valimada. The distribution of dry rations for the displaced did not stop with the sunset. It continued relentlessly throughout last night in villages like Haragama, Mailapitia, Pasgama, Hevavissa and Marasana. This is how relief supplies were distributed to affected communities in the village of Nugathanna in Hunnasgiriya, Ududumbara. The people's contributions, the food, the clothing, the hope are being transported by every means possible: water, land and air. This immense public service is possible only because the Sri Lanka Air Force and the Disaster Management Centre have joined the fight. We must never ever allow the trapped people in areas inaccessible by road to be forgotten. For 7 days, an army of young volunteers has poured out their hearts, working with fierce commitment to ensure every single soul needing refuge is reached. Using the bubble wrap method for robust packing, essential supply bags were rushed from the Sirasa headquarters to the Katunayaka Air Force Base. There, the Air Force took over, loading the aid onto aircraft to be dropped directly into the affected areas. This is more than a relief mission. It is a true service to the nation, and countless volunteers understand the profound value of this historical moment. It is the inescapable truth that without the enormous strength and unwavering solidarity by you, the public, provide, a colossal undertaking of this magnitude would be utterly and painfully impossible.
The Sri Lanka Army has been working hand in hand with Sirasa Shakti Sahanayatra since the initiative began dispatching aid convoys across the country. Commander of the Army, Lieutenant General Lasanta Rodrigo, also joined the Sirasa Shakti Sahanayatra today. The Army commander, who visited the Gampola Jamiul Fala Jumma Mosque, distributed aid to the people.
මේවල අසන්න වෙලාවේ අපේ මුස්ලිම් ජනතාව පෙළපෙන සියලුම ආගම් කොටස් මෙතන ඉන්නවා සියලුම ආගමක් මෙතන කියලා නැහැ හැම කොටසම මේ පල්ලියේ ඉන්නවා ඔබතුමා යුද හමුදාව ගොඩක් සේවය කරලා තියෙනවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ බලන්න පුළුවන් හෙලිකොප්ටරේ බයින වෙලාවේ ඒගොල්ලෝ යා නැති වුණා එක්කනේ බේර ගන්න කියලා ජීවිතය දෙනවා ඒක තමයි යුද හමුදාව පොලිසිය යුද හමුදාව කියන එක නෙවෙයි කියන එක සාමාන්‍ය මිනිස්සු නෙවෙයි අපිට ගොඩක් කැප වෙනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ ආගමක් නැහැ හැමකම ශ්‍රී ලංකන්ස් ඒ විදිහට තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ කරගෙන යන්නේ.
Madura Ilangakon, Group Human Resources Manager of the Capital Maharaja Group, News Director at Newsfirst Gayan Sampat Somachandra, and government officials, among others, participated in the distribution of aid. This afternoon, aid was also distributed to people taking refuge at the relief center located at the Gampola Narangvita Purana Viharasthanaya. The Sri Lanka Army is taking the lead in all operations in the Gampola area, which has been severely affected by landslides, including rescuing the affected people, removing debris and clearing roads. Meanwhile, as part of the Sahanayatra initiative, specially assorted energy packs were provided to Sri Lanka Army teams who are working tirelessly day and night. The sponsors for the energy packs were Munchie from Ceylon Biscuits Limited, Tiara OK from CBL Foods International, Ride Energy Drink from Cargill's Food and Beverage, and Candos Chocolate from Ceylon Chocolate Limited.
Today, of course, me and my team came to Kandy to see the place where the disaster had been taken place. and we have witnessed to our own eyes the magnitude of it. And as I always mention in my interviews, that I used to say, the pride of the nation and strength of the people, that is the forces in a nation. We have become the strength for the people. I always urge the people to stay calm, that we will get out of this menace and we will re-establish the country not as it was, but in a higher platform than this.
The Sirasa Shakti Sahana Yatra. Sri Lanka needs you. Please donate the following dry rations and help those who need it the most. Rice, dal, noodles, soya meat, canned fish and biscuits. You can hand over these items at the following collection points: the MTV head office, Braybrook Place, Colombo 2, the Deparnama Studio Complex in Panipitia, the Kandy City Centre in Kandy. For further inquiries, please call 076 552 5000. Together, we can make a difference.
The International Monetary Fund signalled strong solidarity with Sri Lanka in the wake of Cyclone Ditwa, confirming that it is actively exploring options to provide further support for recovery and resilience beyond the existing extended fund facility. Now, Julie Kozak, director of the IMF's Communications Department, made this statement in response to a question posed by Newsfirst's Zulfiq Farzan at a press conference in Washington, D.C.
I've got a couple of questions on Sri Lanka. Last week, Sri Lanka was devastated by a horrendous cyclone, and the rescue operations are still ongoing. Now, will there be any flexibility in timelines for the structural reforms, given the urgent need for disaster recovery right now and for reconstruction? And at the same time, does the IMF foresee any changes in Sri Lanka's debt position? And also, is the IMF going to be revisiting growth projections and reform priorities in light of the cyclone's economic disruption? Thank you.
And I really want to start by saying that, by conveying our deepest sympathies to the people of Sri Lanka for the effects of the devastating cyclone. Our hearts, go out to the people of Sri Lanka, and we mourn the loss of life that has taken place. And I want to extend those condolences to people of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, as well, also in Asia, where there have been very significant flooding and often loss of life. So our deepest condolences to the people of all of those countries. On Sri Lanka, on the specific questions, what I can say is that, we're closely engaging with the Sri Lankan authorities, development partners, and other counterparts to assess the humanitarian, social, and economic toll of the cyclone. We understand that large parts of Sri Lanka have been affected by the floods. And on that basis, we do expect economic activity to be adversely affected, in addition, of course, to the significant human toll that the cyclone has taken. We will be able to, we will have a better assessment of the economic situation once the rapid post-disaster damage assessment is completed. And of course, that's being completed by the Sri Lankan authorities in conjunction with other partners. With respect to the IMF, we are continuing to support Sri Lanka's recovery, reform, and resilience under the EFF arrangement. Staff and the Sri Lankan authorities reached a staff-level agreement on the 5th review back in October, before the cyclone. And right now, staff is looking into options to further support Sri Lanka in the recovery process. We still expect to have a board meeting on December 15th, but as I said, we are looking into options to further support Sri Lanka, and we will be providing additional details as the assessment of economic needs and damages moves forward. and as we have more information that can inform our own thinking around the options for how we can further support Sri Lanka.
Today is the final Poya Day of the year, the Unduwa Poya. This month's Sirasa Namami Poya program was broadcast from the Stein Studio Complex in Ratmalana under the theme My Country, My Heart.
The Poya Day program began following the Buddha Puja and the observance of 8 precepts. The 8 precepts were administered by Venerable Lunugamvehera Narada Thera.
Attanga samannagatang silang samadhiyami.
A special program was also held today with the dual purpose of sharing blessings with those who died in the disaster and building the future with the goal of ensuring that the surviving people can rebuild with courage and determination free from uncertainty.
දේශනා කරන්නේ මිනිස්සෙක්ට තියෙන උපරිම නැගිටීම තමයි නැතිවීම.
The Sirasa Damsara Dhammadeshana was delivered by Venerable Sangama Anumadasithero, the patron of the Gampaha Sadaham Sisila Senasuna.
අද රටේම ඉන්නේ පටාචාරලා කිසා ගොතමිල. අපි මේ මිනිස්සු සනස්සන්න ඕනේ.
The Sirasa FM Stanaramara Sevena program was also broadcast today from the Ratmalana Stein Studio Complex. Venerable Hasalaka Sila Vimalatero graced the program.
And that's a wrap of your news for tonight. Thank you for watching.
Good night.